Chris Jenkins is an experiencer who posted about his story on the MUFON Global group on Facebook. Caught my attention immediately, and certainly the attention of thousands of other members. And he's joining us to talk about his experience in more detail. Hi, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. You had an amazing experience back in 2007. And when I first read about it in the MUFON Facebook group, I immediately saw similarities to many of the people that I've interviewed who have come in contact with ETs. So I guess let's just get you to run through what happened, because it's totally riveting and fascinating.
Okay, well, me and my wife were working in Omaha, Nebraska at AT&T at a call center. We both got home at the same time. It was roughly about 8:30 at night. Come in the house, go into my room, which is on the 5th floor in an apartment building, by the way, there in Omaha, Nebraska. And I sit on the edge of my bed as I'm taking my shoes off. Okay, my wife is standing right beside me. She's got her hand on my shoulder. She's taking her shoes off too. The two grays come right through the wall of my 5th floor apartment building. Okay, I was very shocked. I was trying to rationalize it in my brain, but it wasn't, what I was seeing was not working in my head. You know, I couldn't figure it out because I was shocked. So one of the grays takes out this metal stick and he points it at us. And when he pointed it at us, I immediately felt this wave of dizziness and pressure, like I was drunk, like the room started spinning. And then out of the corner of my eye, because I'm seated, I see my wife just fall over. You know, she falls right on the bed. And that kind of angered me more. So I think because of that and a couple other factors, I was able to like resist whatever this was, or you know. So I just said out loud, I said, how the F did y'all do that? And now at this point, the little gray, or one of the grays, had his back to me. I assume it was the one that hit us with the stick. And he turns real funny and he looks at me, and then he kind of cocks his head to the side and he says, how did we do what exactly? But he doesn't say it, you know, it's telepathic. It's like right into my brain. It sounds kind of crazy, but you know, I say to him, I said, how did you walk through the wall? And he responds back. He says, we use a particular type of light that increases the distance between the nucleus and electrons and atoms. And he said, this allows us to walk through solid objects, word for word. I'll never forget it. And then I black out immediately.
Yeah. Did you understand what he meant when he said that? I mean, are you technically minded?
Yeah. And actually, like when he was saying it, I could see like almost a diagram of it in the particles, you know, separating, like increasing in distance.
Yep.
It was very weird. It was like watching a video on YouTube almost in my brain as he was explaining it to me.
Right. So you said little gray. How tall were the grays?
I'd say about mid-waist, and I'm about 6'2". So
okay.
I don't know, maybe 4 foot, you know, maybe 3.5 feet, maybe 4 foot tall.
Yeah. So what happened?
They had silver suits on, and they had 3 fingers and a thumb, and there were 2 of them.
Right.
So, okay. So then I black out, and the next thing I know, I come to, and I'm in the woods, and I'm in a single file line, and it's one gray in front of me, and then me, and then my wife is right behind me because I turned around, and then the other gray was right behind her, all in a single file line. And we're walking up this ramp to a big glowing like ball, and I couldn't really make out what that was. It was just really bright and shiny, so I couldn't really focus at that. All I remember really is looking down at my shoes and hearing the noises my feet made on that ramp as we walked up it. And then I black out again. Okay, so the next thing I remember is I'm in this big room that's like stone and metal mixed together. And right in front of me is this chair. And then I look at the chair, and then I realize I'm holding hands with something. So I look down on my right, and it's one of the grays. I'm holding hands with the gray. That's when I pulled his hand up and I looked at his fingers specifically. And I was like, wow, you know, he's got 3 fingers and a thumb.
Wow.
So anyway, the gray on my left, because there were 2, the one on my left runs up to the chair. So I see him run up there, and I look up, and this tall white guy turns, and he looks like right at us. And now he was tall, he was like big, and this was from a distance, but I could tell he was a lot bigger than me. His skin was white like paper white. His hair was also paper white, and kind of long, like it come down a bit. And when he turned and he looked at me, okay, this is the weirdest part, because I'll never forget this feeling. I felt very small. I felt like he was looking through me. And I don't know how to verbalize it. You know, it's very difficult to explain. It's almost like you're standing in front of your great grandfather.
Yep.
And he's disappointed in you, sort of. I felt weird. So I couldn't really focus on him. You know, I tried to. We had eye contact for a second, and his eyes were blue, by the way, and they were kind of glowing. So, you know, I don't know. And there was this weird thing around the back of his head. I couldn't tell what that was. It looked like steam coming up, like in a whole big area behind him. So it was just really weird. So I couldn't really look at him. I had to turn away, you know? So I turned my head, and I see him just out of the corner of my eye kind of do like this, you know, kind of wave his hands off. So the gray comes back. I'm still holding hands with the other one. We go down this hallway. We went around a corner. I remember we went around a corner. And then as soon as we go around the corner, there's a room. And on the far side of the room is a 6-foot tall praying mantis. Okay. So as soon as I go around the corner and I see it, I stop, because I'm like shocked. Like the other things were humanoid. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when I turn around and I see this thing, it scared me. So the gray on my right that I'm holding hands with, he says telepathically again, he says, calm down. He says, he just wants to meet you. So I immediately felt like better. It was weird. It was like it was instantly gone. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I take a couple steps towards the mantis, and like, no shit. And I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, it's all right.
The mantis, because, you know, he's got the forearms that were bent. He just kind of sticks one out, like he wanted me to like shake his hand. The more I think about it, like I still get weird feelings. Have you ever been like terrified and felt love at the same time? Like,
yeah.
It's such a weird feeling, because like when he stuck his arm out, I felt like very comfortable. And I know that's weird. So anyway, so I took my hand out and I touched it. And when I touched his arm, it felt very plasticky, you know, but like instantly I had this like vision of them in like this tunnel crawling all over each other, like thousands of them.
Wow.
And I could feel clicks, like click, 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 click. And then I felt like 3 real powerful ones. And it went in my knees, in my elbows, and then in my teeth. It was like bam, 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 like click, click, click. And then my skeleton felt like the whole thing was like vibrating. It was really weird. And then like my perspective went out. And if you can understand that, it kind of like a camera angle broadens. Yep. Okay. And I saw tunnels. I saw thousands of them. And I saw like a planet that had carvings in the surface of it, like ridges and ice. And then I heard this like voice, but it was different than the previous one. Okay. This one was much deeper, it was like rumbly. And it said, this is how we communicate, through touch. And then I black out again, and I wake up sitting on my bed the next morning at 7:30. The sun is up. My wife is standing right next to me. Has got her hand even on my shoulder, like we never left. Right. Fully clothed. I think my shoelace was still even untied, because I managed to untie one.
Right.
like nothing ever happened.
What did you say to each other?
Oh man, the only thing she said to me, like she takes her hand off and she says, "What the F just happened?" She says, "It felt like I went on a trip and I didn't want to go."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Do you remember anything?" And she's like, she kept scratching her head and pacing back and forth. And she said, no, she said she doesn't remember anything.
Do you I mean, you remember her on the ramp, but when you went onto the ship, was she with you still?
No, I have no idea. I didn't see her after that.
Okay. And time passing, she still didn't remember anything that happened to her.
Nope. Like when I tried to talk to her, like as a matter of fact, when you mentioned this interview, I texted her because we're still friends. We divorced about 2 years ago, but we're still friends. And I tried to get her to talk about it more, and she's like, I don't remember anything. And she's very I don't know. She's not just wired that way. She doesn't even want to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
okay. So the when you were transported out of your apartment, I mean, you don't remember that at all? You don't remember how
no.
you? Okay. What about the ship? When you got to the ship, how big do you think it was?
From me walking up to it, it looked like about the size of maybe a water tower, the top of a water tower.
Okay.
Not real big, but maybe a couple of maybe 3 full-size vans back to back.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. What about the large white humanoid? I mean, totally fascinating. It seems by your description that it was one of the kind of superior races on that ship.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got from him. He had armor, like scaled armor,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that sounds weird, but like a knight. And I saw the shoulder of it, and I could definitely see the scales, but I remember it was very shiny. Um, it was weird. It's like he radiated light and energy and this just feelings, and I really don't know what that was all about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
He, I mean, when you first described him, I immediately thought, the Nordics, but
yeah.
I'm not sure whether it would have been.
Well, okay. A lot of other things have happened since this started. Okay. I used to be very career minded too, like my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I used to pursue, nothing but my job and making money. And then after this, I know these two things don't necessarily match, but I got to be honest. They've been drilling me with scriptures and telling me to look up stuff. And I know that sounds crazy. Um, but they explain things to me. Okay, there's 4 scriptures in the Bible that talk about, I think it's Daniel, where he's praying and it says a holy one and a watcher came down to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's 4 scriptures that mention those 2 groups in particular, holy ones and watchers. And they told me that's them. Watchers are the grays, is what they tell me. Holy ones are the tall white guys. I still don't know where they are. The Bible also mentions 3 particular constellations: Arcturus, Orion's belt, and Pleiades.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 would not be mentioned in the Bible unless they were relevant and important in some fashion. So I
Right.
assume that's where these things are from.
Okay.
Then the Bible also mentions a group called the Anak, which I assume is the Sumerian reference to the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is, that group is mentioned 16 times in the Bible, which I find extremely fascinating. And I had no clue until I get these messages dropped into my head. Go ahead if you have any questions. I need a
No, because I was just going to ask. So you're still in contact with these ETs, but is it physical contact?
There was once after that where my son, my wife, and myself saw a red orb that was circling, and all 3 of us saw it. But then after that point, which maybe it was about like 3 or 4 years after the 2007 event. But after that point, no, never another physical anomaly or anything like that. Okay. But what they do is like I'll be standing looking up something, for example, or doing anything really. I could be at the grocery store, I could be at work, you know, I have no control over it. And
Yep.
they'll just drop something into my brain.
Like a download.
Yeah, or a question or a subject, and my brain will just continue to dwell on it, and it will just repeat it, and it repeats it over and over and over and over again until I get home and I look up whatever reference material they're repeating.
Yeah.
So if you would like, I can give you an example.
Okay, sure.
Okay. The story of Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah. I was just simply reading that once, and I come across where it says that Lot ate food with these two angels first, and it was unleavened bread. Now, my brain immediately, as soon as I read it, where it said unleavened bread, the voice, and it sounds like somebody standing right behind me, by the way, on the right-hand side. So I kind of assume that's the gray, you know, because he held my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, by the way, I'll get back to that. But anyway, as I'm reading it where it says unleavened bread, the voice says, look up yeast in space, word for word. Like somebody standing right behind me said it out loud. Okay. So I'm like, huh. So I go and I look it up, and I found out immediately, because it's very public information. NASA does research and said that yeast grows uncontrollably in space, which means if you have yeast in your system and you go into orbit, the yeast will grow to such an extent that you'll get yeast infections in your mouth, your throat, your stomach, all over.
Right.
Okay. So that means that those two angels that visited Lot were from space and going into space and didn't want yeast in their system. And that was incredible to me because I had no clue where that came from. I had no interest particular in that subject, and they told me that. And you can look that up.
Wow. What about the ETs on the ship? How many races do you think there were, and was there a pecking order? I mean, was there one particular race that looked in charge?
Yeah, the tall white, but the Mantis seemed a lot more influential.
Yep.
If that, like, powerful, like when I walked in and I saw him, I felt something immediately. You know, I felt a calming effect. I felt very not me, but influenced, almost to the point where I was giddy after I took a couple steps towards it.
Right.
You know, like a little kid dancing around, you know, I felt very odd.
Yep.
And then even to this day, when I think about it, I feel very happy when I think about him for some reason.
Okay.
You know, I went from instantly seeing him being terrified to now when I sit down and I think about it, it's really weird.
Yeah. And what about the Greys? Were they more like the worker bees?
I believe that they are drones. Yeah, I believe that they are puppets that are influenced. And I think, well, they told me once, word for word again, that every man, woman, and child who has ever existed has two Greys assigned to them at birth that watch and record everything that they do.
Wow. Okay.
They said they come in your room at night and take your DNA specifically.
Okay. Have you had a physical examination to see whether there are any marks on your body or whether you may have an implant?
I had a full examination a while back in Colorado because I had a bit of a health issue scare. Came back, everything was positive. I mean, negative, like I'm perfectly fine. But when I showed the doctor specifically the lump that I have on my leg, which I believe is an implant. I don't know if you saw the video that I posted on the MUFON group. Yep. Okay. He said it looked to him like what he calls a fatty tumor. But when I looked up a fatty tumor description on the internet, it did not match. And then the doctor just dismissed it. He didn't want to check it or anything. Yep.
Yep. So did they ever disclose to you why they take people and what it's all leading up to?
Yep. You really want to know all that?
Well, I mean, we're here, so let's have a listen.
Okay. They told me that there are two genetic bloodlines on this planet. They said that they were influenced by both sides. They said the two Greys that follow you, one records good and one records bad. There are two factions to all of this. From my understanding, the races that I saw were the good side, I assume, because I wasn't hurt. They seem very forthcoming, very honest, and very helpful. They've told me a lot of stuff, and I'm very appreciative for that, honestly. But they told me there's a bad side, and they explained to me what those are. And again, it's going to sound crazy, man. And I don't really like talking about it, honestly, because it sounds crazy. But reptilians, that's what they told me. Reptilians. They said the reptilians influenced the human genetics, and now there's two genetic bloodlines, one from the creators and one from the reptilians. That's what they said. They said eventually what's going to happen is there is an entire solar system. Holy fuck, I know this sounds bonkers, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just telling you, okay? They told me that there is a giant solar system in a bubble of highly reflective particles that reflect all light from the inside and out. They said we will not even see it until it gets close enough to where our sunlight hits this bubble and is reflected back. They said in this bubble is an entire solar system, a star, planets, orbiting bodies, the whole nine yards. They said they own every planet in that solar system, and they said all light there is reflected on the inside too, which means all of the planets are constantly illuminated. There's no nighttime there. They said that this thing is going to come through our solar system. They're going to collide. And by the time it leaves again, it's going to pull Earth with it. And Earth, the entire planet, will be moved into this bubble and become part of their solar system. That's what they told me. They said they're going to come and evacuate twice. They said only twice. They said the first time, very few people are going to go. So they're going to leave, and they're going to let us get wrecked by gravitational forces and all this crap when this planet stuff comes through. Then they're going to come back later to collect survivors, which there will be many, many more, they said the second time, and then they're going to leave. Then Earth will be shifted, and that's going to take a long time. We're going to be taken to some sort of facility that they won't really talk to me about too much, where our genetics are changed and we become basically suited for life in this new orbital pattern, because they said our DNA, those who don't mess with it from the creators, will become active because we're already a hybrid species. That's what they said. They explained the whole thing, dude. Yeah. And I know it sounds crazy.
I mean, if you think about what you're saying from a biblical perspective, I mean, it's almost we're talking rapture and tribulation.
And what they told me is specifically, they said, don't think of it in a biblical sense. Think of it as like our computers and NASA run programs and simulations where they can run orbital patterns for thousands of years in a computer for an hour. That's what the Bible is. It's a timeline of events, of a record of their simulation as to the exact process of what's going to happen. That's what the Bible is, they say.
Okay, so you mentioned, you divorced 2 years ago. Did that experience affect your marriage?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes, because I become obsessed with it, dude. Like when you see something like that and it doesn't rationalize in your brain, the mechanics behind that physically change what you think about. You're at work, like doing your job, whether it's mopping a floor or driving a car or whatever it is, and you're sitting there thinking about aliens all day, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that really starts to affect your personal life. You know what I'm saying? So I'm at home looking up stuff, reading stuff, books constantly, and yeah, we just kind of drifted apart.
Yeah, I've interviewed a couple of experience in the past who are both counselors, and they said to me that the numbers are growing for counseling for people that have had experiences, paranormal experiences, and it does affect relationships within a family.
Yeah, my son too, like me and his relationship is just fine, but that's different because it's my son and I. Mm-hmm. And plus he saw the thing too, like when all three of us were there, so he kind of believes a bit more.
Yeah.
but you can't just have a discussion like this with everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've gone to churches because, you know, they tell me to read this stuff. So I've read the Sumerian books, the Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, all of the lost books of the Bible, the book of Jasher, the book of Enoch, the entire Bible cover to cover, probably now about 12 times. And I can't say I would have done this normally, like before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before it was all about job, money, car, you know what I'm saying? Savings, retirement. And then all of a sudden this stuff hit me and it's like, I've changed. Now, I can't say, I can't say if that's a good or a bad thing because I have a lot more knowledge now, but at the same time, I don't care about most of the stuff anymore.
No, because once it happens to you, it must make you think about, well, what is life really all about?
Yeah, they said their exact words were, "This is temporary, and none of this will even be remembered."
Yeah,
that's what they said.
All right, just a couple last questions. Did you even believe in ETs before that experience?
I had dreams about them when I was little, specifically like nightmares, what I thought were nightmares. And then after that, I never paid it any mind at all. I didn't consider the possibility. By then I was a young man and I was chasing women. That was pretty much my life. I was working out a lot. And then, like I said, I became very career minded. So none of that happened. I wasn't interested in none of that until, that event.
Yeah.
And
well, you mentioned, I mean, what you just said about your nightmares as a child and you thought were nightmares. I mean, that's classic experience a talk. And people have actually had regression to find out if anything really did happen. Have you considered that?
I've never done a regression. I've considered it a great deal, as a matter of fact, because the nightmares that I had were two grays that were looking in the window every night.
Right.
And I'd wake up crying, and I swear I could still see him in the window. And my brother shared a room with me. So he'd wake up and he'd be like, why are you crying? And I'd point at the window and he could not see them. So, you know what I mean? I just kind of brushed that off as a childhood dream. But now thinking back on it, it's very possible they could have been coming a while. Chris, but I mean, dude, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, sometimes, online groups can be the last place an experiencer will go and tell the story because they can be unforgiving and ruthless and pretty cruel. But you had a very positive response from your group, from the hundreds of comments that I read through, and very, very, if any, negative comments.
Yeah, that was very nice to see because I'm going to tell you a story real quick, okay? Whatever this is, it spills over from time to time. Like it will affect other people if I'm around them too much. Mm-hmm. Like I was in Arkansas specifically. I was on a boat with a church group, okay, a bunch of old ladies, okay, and then one younger man that was roughly about my age. And he was an ex-military guy, and evidently he suffered some kind of head injury and got payments after that point. So he was an injured veteran. So we're all out on this boat and we're laughing and talking about spirituality because it was a church group. So I decided to tell them my story. Okay. Probably not a good idea.
No.
So all these old ladies are looking at me funny, like, wow. And then this military guy starts picking on me. Like he starts just, calling me stupid and all sorts of things, intellectually challenged and whatnot. So they all jump in the water and they're swimming, and I'm like up there fixing some food. And this is in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is a volcanic lake. Okay, mm-hmm. So at the bottom of this lake, supposedly there's a whole bunch of crystals, natural formations and whatnot. But I swear, right next to the boat, because I'm in the boat, so I can see the surface of the water, but everybody else is in the water, so they couldn't see it. No joke, a big freaking like hole opened up and then immediately snap back shut. Now I couldn't tell. The more I kept thinking about that, there was no rational explanation of it unless it was a bubble or something going into the water. But this big wave come out and hit all of the ladies that were swimming in the water. And they're all screaming and stuff because no boat came by or anything. And I'm talking like an ocean foot, good sized wave.
Mm-hmm.
The boat is rocking. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what that was. They're start making fun of me more. They start saying, Chris, did you summon a UFO? And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So I ended up leaving. Okay. I never talked to any of those people pretty much after that point. But the military guy specifically on Facebook started posting probably about 3 days or 3 weeks-ish later, about 3 weeks, that he himself was abducted.
Wow.
That they came in, put him to sleep. He suffered sleep paralysis, and he explained the whole thing, dark figures. And I'm like, yeah, they went and got him. And that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. And I apologize profusely, because even reading that story or telling this, could spark something. And if it does, or even a memory of something happening to somebody else, I don't mean for that to happen, because it is terrifying. So I apologize if that does happen.
Okay. Well, Chris, I thank you.
I needed to.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'm glad you explained that. I thank you for your time. It takes a lot of courage to come out and talk about experiences like this, and I applaud you for doing that. And I hope, stay in touch, and I hope we can have you on again.
Oh, sure thing. It's Dean Caparella.
That's me.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. If anything happens, again, I'll definitely let you guys know.
Okay. Well, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yep. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Chris Jenkins joining us today.